Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Jay Woodruff, a member of your parish committee. Welcome to our beautiful sanctuary, those of you who are here in person and online. Our mission is to build community, search for meaning, deepen our spirituality, and make a better world. A special welcome is extended to visitors. Questions you may have about First Parish or Unitarian Universalism can be addressed downstairs in the vestry at coffee time by a member of our welcome table. In addition, Reverend Deborah and Kate Holland, our Director of Lifespan Education, will be happy to meet with you. Please remember to silence your cell phones for our time together. Join me now in taking a moment to say hello to one another. Including a wave to the camera on the wall that connects you to those online. And now, I'd like to introduce the chalice lighters, the Levine family, to start the service.
With open minds and loving hearts, we gather to search for meaning, to care for one another, and to work together for a better world.
Good morning. Choir, thank you. That was such a beautiful song to open our morning. Even now, the day breaks for us all, indeed. It's so good to see you all. My name is Reverend Deborah Bennett, and I am the interim minister here at First Parish, and I welcome everybody together today. Well, one day, our dear John Beard, sorry to call you out there, John, said to me that I ought to do a sermon about the illusion of separateness that's created by nation states. The misinformed belief that by drawing a line in the dirt that one group of people do not have to contend with another, and that the actions of one could not impact all. And I thought that was a very important topic, and I want to say thank you, John, for sending me down the road of research, and oh my goodness, I was a little overwhelmed. So please forgive my attempt this morning, but I did get somewhere that I think is very important, so stay tuned for that. I'd like to begin this morning with these words. It's a poem by Laura Bogle, who probably says it best of all. This is titled Outside, Inside. Outside, the flags fly down the highway, hanging on the back of large trucks or the chests of men. Outside, there is a grabbing and taking, a staking and restaking of territory claimed. The roads cut, the oil burned, blockades erected, and walls built. Outside, the borders between us are made visible in noise, colors, ballots, signs, and signals. Inside resides the breath of common ancestors, the child who plays with no thought of malice, the heart turned toward suffering, the taste of figs ripening in the lingering autumn heat, the sliver of an orange moon low in the evening November sky. Inside begins something you might call a prayer. Let us kneel down then, not to God or nation or ideology, but to what is inside, a feeling, a connection, a welling like the waters at the very beginning of time, unpolluted and gently flowing, sweet and dark and healing. Let us kneel down to the persistent possibility that the life and love within prevails. Let us release what is inside outward into beauty, spilling towards each other until all merges. Unstoppable well of knowing that we will only ever be saved by one another. Isn't that beautiful? I'll make that available in our next newsletter. I thought it was really, really powerful. Let's sing to it, shall we? Please rise and body our spirit. Our opening hymn this morning is 134 in the gray hymnal. About the Well, I get the joy of telling our story this morning, but I'm going to need a little help. So, as I don't see too many under 5-foot people, I'm going to make sure all of you participate this morning because I need your help in deciding something. See, there was this teacher, and he was an amazing teacher, and he had this school of students, and he taught them all kinds of wonderful things. He taught them how to sit and be patient with themselves. He taught them how to be patient with others. He taught them how to use their body in wonderful ways. He taught them how to read books and how to understand and assimilate what they read. He taught them many, many things, and the students loved him. One day, the teacher said, "Students, I need to talk to you. Gather around." They said, "We have a problem." He said, you love this school, do you not?" And the students said, yes, we love this school. "And would you do anything to protect this school?" And they said, yes, we will do anything. We love you. You're our teacher, and we love this school. We can't imagine it not being here." And the teacher said, "Okay, well, you see, we're having some financial problems. And we need more money. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go out into the villages and all the towns nearby. Now you have to do this really sneakily, and do not let anybody see you. That part's really important. Don't let anybody see you, but I want you to go and take things and bring them back so we can sell them, so the school can stay alive, because the school is really important." And the students sat there and they looked at each other. Was he serious? Nobody said anything. Now, what do you think students should do? Does anybody have an idea? What do you think the students should do? If you have an idea, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic. Do you have an idea? What do you think?
They shouldn't do it.
They shouldn't do it? They should just let their school fail? You have another thought, Annie? Okay, they shouldn't do it. Anybody else have an idea? What should they do? Oh, we have more ideas here. Welcome.
We thought maybe they should make something to sell.
Oh, maybe they should make something to sell to help raise money for the school. Got some more ideas back here.
They should have a pledge drive.
They should have a pledge drive. I'm going to pass this right behind you, Phyllis.
We thought they should gather.
Friends.
They should gather friends. A good idea. Well, you are all very smart, and these are all very good ideas. But guess what? The students didn't come up with those ideas. So they, one by one, slowly started to leave the schoolhouse thinking, well, we love our teacher. We're dedicated to our teacher. We pledge allegiance to the teacher and this school, so we're just going to have to do this. And one by one, the children filed out of the school, except there was one child left at the end. After all the other children filed out, and the teacher looked at the child and said, "My child, why are you still here? Why are you not out there like the other children?" And the child said, "I cannot do what you ask." The teacher said, "Why?" He said, "Because you told us we must go out and do this thing and have nobody see us. But I will see me. But I will see me. So what you ask is impossible." And the teacher bowed to him and said, "That's right, go out and get your friends back here right away." And he did. And all the students did all the other things that you guys mentioned because they were listening to you. So they sold things and they gathered together. And in fact, the school wasn't even in need of saving. The teacher just wanted to test them out a little bit. What do you think of that story? Now, I think there's a song to sing. Deirdre, would you like to escort our children out this morning? And let's all rise. Or do we rise? I don't even know. How long have I been here? I don't know. You know what? Because I turn around. Okay, let's all sing the children out.
the offering. To keep this congregation going beyond our institution's 383 years, First Parish continues to employ a time-honored tradition of asking members to support all that goes through into keeping our building, our people, and our mission solvent and happy. Some of this is done through volunteering. Some of this is done by transferring a small portion of your monetary assets into the trays that will be passed shortly. This small act of kindness keeps the lights on, pays those who work at First Parish on your behalf, and even more important, gives our community the resources it needs to positively influence the world around us. However, if you are visiting us, please let the plate pass. Your offering will now be gratefully received.
I'm Kathy Schmidt. There we go. Oh, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm a lay minister of the congregation. This is a time in our service we set aside to acknowledge the joys and sorrows that we all hold. In both our sharing and in our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. We begin by lighting a special vigil candle in recognition of the pain and suffering being experienced around the world due to ongoing war and violence. May this small act help to unite us in our prayer for the end to all suffering. If you have a personal joy or sorrow you would like to share, please come forward, raise your hand. I will
come forward or even have the mic brought to you. So the worship team and I talked, and we thought we wanted to give you another opportunity as well. So beginning this week, there is going to be a book in the back. It's a prayer book for joys, sorrows, and concerns. So the purpose of this book is twofold. You can write down a joy, sorrow, concern that you would like someone else to speak if you just don't feel like speaking it. You can also just write down a joy, sorrow, concern, or even just the name of somebody you're holding in your heart, so that following our joy, sorrows, and concerns time, I'm going to just take a moment of silence and hold a prayer for everything in the book. Okay. This also helps us serve, because I know sometimes there's been this question of, do I speak about the tragedies in the world during Joys and Sorrows time, or is Joys and Sorrows time just for my own personal tragedies, and what happens when I personally feel the tragedies of the world? So I've heard this conversation. So all those options are open for you to speak something into the mic, but also I wanted to give this as an option so that we can just hold all those things. So know that this will be available to you. You can simply just write a name John. If you're holding someone named John in your heart, you can just write that name. I will name them during the prayer. Or if there's something more you want to write, you're welcome to do that as well. Does this sound like a good plan? We'll try this out and see how that feels for a while. So on that note, and thank you, Kathy, for holding our joys, sorrows, and concerns, I'm going to invite us into just a moment of prayer. This is a moment where we can, at the end of joys, sorrows, and concerns, whether we've heard something from someone or not, we can imagine that in this room right now there are joys in people's hearts, there are sorrows in people's hearts, and there are places that they are holding deep concern. So we take this moment of silence to give them space. We take this moment of silence as a prayerful way of holding each other in community, of holding each other's sorrows and concerns. This morning, I especially hold the concern of watching every day to see if humanitarian aid is getting through to the civilians in Gaza. Holding the children of Gaza in our hearts. Holding the children of so much violence throughout our world in our hearts today. May those things that you hold in your heart be felt by you, but be known by you, that others hold them with you. But while it is a necessary part of life for us to experience pain and sorrow, it is not necessary that we do so alone. May we hold each other close and lift each other up. Amen. Now, the thing I didn't figure out is how to transition from that to then also putting in you a time of centering. So I'm working on that part. So let's continue with just a time to take a couple breaths together. Oh, I'm sorry.
We just received word that today is Mary Tregis's 102nd birthday.
Mary Tregisher's 102nd birthday. Is she happen to be watching by any chance? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mary. Happy birthday to you. Ooh. Wow, happy birthday. That's a beautiful way to transition. So I'm going to invite the choir to just lift us off into our anthem this morning, and I'll find a way to transition from prayer to meditation that feels more smoothly next time. I'll be working on that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. I'm wondering why you're not joining in. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You know that, right? Yeah. Did you know that that part, the under God part, was actually not in the original version, despite the fact that it was written by a Baptist minister? Reverend Francis Bellamy, who is said to be known for his fiery sermons, including one where he argued that Jesus was a socialist, wrote that pledge back in 1892. In its publication in the Youth's Companion magazine, it included directions for the recitation by students. And the instructions read as thus: at a signal from the principal, the pupils, in ordered ranks, hands by the side, face the flag. Another signal is given. Every pupil gives the flag the military salute, right hand lifted, palm downward, to a line with the forehead and close to it. Standing thus, all repeat the pledge together slowly. At the words, "to my flag," the right hand is extended gracefully, palm upward toward the flag, and remains in this gesture till the end of the affirmation, whereupon all hands immediately drop to the side. I like the graceful part. Shortly thereafter, the directions were altered so that the right hand was to be over the heart. And after reciting "to the flag," the arm was to be extended toward the flag, palm down. I actually wrote that. I wrote, "oh goodness," but you said that. Yes, that actually happened. Now that part was changed during World War II when it was decided that one should simply leave one's hand on the heart. The phrase "under God" was added in 1954 after President Eisenhower encouraged Congress to make the change due to concerns about communism. And so that is why most of us raised in this country grew up beginning each school day, whether we wanted to or not, declaring our allegiance to the country and declaring the existence of God. That is, unless you were one of those kids. Now, it may come as a surprise to you, but I was a little bit of a rebel back in the day growing up in my rural Pennsylvania school. I was that kid that decided I did not want to stand and pledge my allegiance to a flag any more than I wanted to bow my head in prayer to a God who, from what I could surmise from my church-going friends, had a bad reputation for being vengeful and judgmental. As a kid, I decided early on it was in my best interest to keep my eyes open as others called forth his presence just in case he had any plans for me. My teachers were none too happy with my rebellion, but they proceeded patiently, trying to convince me that being patriotic was important. After all, I was told repeatedly, I was lucky to be an American. I remember always thinking how strange it was, this idea that I was part of this group called Americans, and yet I didn't really feel a pride in that label. And just like my doubt in the thought that all Christians, all non-Christians were going to hell, I had a hard time believing that my country was somehow more worthy, more superior, more enlightened than any others. Fast forward some decades, and I continue to struggle with what it means to be an American. As white Christian nationalists seem to be bent on defining American in their own image, I vacillated between trying to figure out how I could leave the country and how I could help take it back. But I always seem to come back to the same questions. Why do some insist on the concept of nation states, and who gets to claim ownership of them anyway? Clearly, there are multiple tribes vying for ownership rights to this and every nation, and the results do not seem good for anyone involved. So what are we as liberal religious, the tribe of the liberal religious, to do? What is our answer to the illusion of division? Well, a lot has been written over the years about tribalism and the good and bad of seeing oneself as part of a defined group. Most researchers claim that the desire to be identified as part of a tribe is natural. People, they say, naturally make categories and place people in groups, calling the group they are in us, and those in different groups them. The rise in nationalism is, by some accounts, simply an exaggerated extension of this natural state of tribalism. Nationalism is most commonly defined as identification with one's own nation and support for its interests to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Nationalism as practiced today here seems to go even further by trying to define who counts as part of the true nation state in ever narrowing terms. Today's nationalism seems to be more about isolation, conformity, and fear. Now, while I can argue that the fact that nationalism is happening, my proposal for us this morning is this. First, that nationalism is a phenomenon based on illusions, and second, that we have the capacity to dispel the illusions it holds. And I know that might sound lofty, but I think we have to try, because not trying does not look very good for any of us. So first, let's talk about these illusions. Illusion number one is simple. The illusion that nations can isolate themselves from outside influences. Despite the desire for some to create a tall border wall, figuratively and literally, to keep out non-American influence, we all know that even the most isolated of nations is never without outside influence. The world is interconnected in ways much deeper than we even know, especially in this age of the internet. It's an illusion to think that one group can exist independently apart from the web of life. Now, I come from the food world, where every good chef from everywhere in the world will tell you that their own cuisine would not exist if it wasn't for the gifts from across their borders. Spices, flavor profiles, ingredients, cooking techniques, they've all been shared cross-culturally for eons. Just like music, just like art, just like ideas and people. And this is no more true than here in the US. It's an illusion to say that one thing is exclusively American, that we can protect what is American, and that any one subgroup of Americans can claim to make the definition of what it means to be American. The second illusion, and perhaps a harder one for those that promote American nationalism, is to recognize this. There is no there. In other words, the perceived community of the nationalist is itself an illusion. In the book titled Imagine Communities, Reflections on the Origins and Spread of Nationalism, author Benedict Anderson makes an interesting point, writing that the idea of a nation as kind of a political community is itself imagined, because the members of even the smallest nation will never know most of their fellow members, meet them, or even hear of them. Yet in the minds of each lives the image of their community. Now, Anderson acknowledges that we crave meaning that a community can give. And he argues that one of nationalism's most important effects is not creating connection among the members, which it does not. It's that it helps to create meaning where there is a lack of meaning. This becomes very evident in times of wars. Nations must create a purpose greater than the cost if they are to get members to fight for them. Now, of course, I need to acknowledge that there are times in history when war has seemed to be truly the only solution. And for those that have sacrificed, we owe a debt of gratitude. But this is not the case for all wars or probably most wars. And too often people are asked to sacrifice all in the name of some made-up history, some made-up identity, some idea of destiny. And it's counterproductive to the ongoing existence of the nation it is trying to protect. Side note, see January 6th for details. In her book, This America, The Case for the Nation, author Jill Lepore writes this. She says, nations, to make sense of themselves, need some kind of agreed-upon past. They can get it from scholars or they can get it from demagogues, but get it they will. And she goes on to talk about the myths and prophecies that help people have a sense of themselves and a sense of destiny. These shared myths and prophecies are the fuel for the continuation of the nation as a separate and special entity. The concept of God has become quite handy with this myth-making for many white, conservative, Christian nationalists. For many, the bond between God and nation is so clear it is hard to imagine that one could be a true American and not share the myths and prophecies of the Christian nationalist tribe. I experienced this struggle for myself in one man on Saturday, November 7th, 2020. I remember the date well. You see, once a week for months, the congregation I was serving in Marietta, Georgia, we'd been doing a Black Lives Matter demonstration in front of the congregation. November 7th was a planned demonstration day, and it also just so happened to be the day when the 2020 election was called for Joe Biden. In a sign of support for our country, I decided to take out the American flag to hold alongside of our Black Lives Matter banner and our rainbow flag that we normally stood with. As a group of about 20 or 30 of us stood alongside the busy Canton Road highway, a man in a pickup truck complete with a Confederate flag came speeding by. Seeing that we were some kind of church and that we had our American flag displayed, he slowed down, he honked, he gave us a big smile and a proud thumbs up for about 1.5 seconds, which is how long it took him to do a major double take and realize that we were also flying a Black Lives Matter banner and a rainbow flag. The look of confusion on his face said it all. He quickly replaced his thumb with another one of his digits, raised it high, and sped away. I imagine he was very upset at our audacity to display the American flag, the flag of his nation, alongside those other non-American displays of inclusion. Back to Jill Lepore. She says, sometimes people confuse nationalism with patriotism. She says there's nothing wrong with and all kinds of things right with loving the place where you live and the people you live with and wanting that place and those people to thrive. So it's easy to confuse nationalism and patriotism, especially because they once meant more or less the same thing. And then she continues. She says, but by the early decades of the 20th century, with the rise of fascism in Europe, nationalism has come to mean something different from patriotism, something fierce, something violent, less of a love for one's own country than a hatred of other countries. And there are people, and a hatred of people within your own country who don't belong to the ethnic, racial, or religious majority. How's that saying go? Hate thy neighbor as thy enemy. I read a statistic that more than 200 million people were killed in the 20th century due to war and acts of genocide. Many of these conflicts were rooted in ethnic, national, religious, political, or other forms of identity group conflict. The 21st century is already filled with similar and increasing horrors. the illusions of nationalism are clearly not just an American problem. And while it can feel scary, I do believe there is hope for us humans, and that our faith can support us in making the change. So how do we dispel the illusions of nationalism? Well, researcher Austin Fuchs, in partnership with the John Templeton Foundation, offers some insights. In a summary of the work of many neuroscientists, he found that while it is true that we humans like to classify each other into types and groups, and that we generalize from existing knowledge about familiar persons and groups and apply that criteria to new people we meet, it is also true that how we classify people and our responses to those classifications are arbitrary and mutable. Research shows that though the classification capacity starts with babies who respond to strangers with increased heart rate, what counts as a stranger depends on who the infant has seen, heard, or interacted with previously. Their reactions, the studies show, are structured not only by what people look like, but on social context and experience, and on the responses of other people to them. In other words, if we are othering others, our children will naturally see them as the other. Researchers note that infants don't automatically make us and them categories. The human mind actually has to learn how to categorize things. Now here's kind of some of the exciting parts. The research showed that as infants and toddlers begin to classify each other or things, that they respond primarily to actions more than they respond to face colors or other markers. So instead of categorizing people by some of the things that we do, they categorize people by their actions. I don't know if you've seen that cute there's a video that shows like two little kids who obviously have some differences, and the interviewer says, "What makes you two different?" And like the black child and the white child together, one might say, "He likes spaghetti and I don't." You know, one child was in a wheelchair and one wasn't. It was like, she has long hair and I have short hair, right? So it's like how they're looking and to categorize is not the same. Anyway, but what they really look for is the actions of each other. And the action that gets the most preferential treatment from children is one. Can you guess what it is? What are children looking for and responding to most? Kindness, niceness. It seems that we humans are actually wired from the very beginning to recognize niceness and to respond to it. So that's the good news. The data shows that determining an us and them is not hardwired. We can unlearn this thing that we've done. And that what primarily will help us de-other others is kindness. When we choose kindness to others and choose to think kindness about others, our brains begin to rewire the categories we've drawn. Put in an illusionary group called the nation, we can be divided by who carries which flag or believes in what God. But when we break it down to person-by-person interactions, the illusion of nationalism can begin to fray. And I know that sounds like it's going to take a very long time, and it probably will. But there's a lot of us and a lot of kindness that can go around. If we want to end the illusion of nationalism, we also must stop being so concerned about my identity. What I'm about to say is not going to be popular with all of my colleagues, but I'm saying it anyway. We have to stop this my identity, your identity, and what these identities mean and how they separate us. We must stop making identity hierarchies and demonizing whole identities of people. Humans are complex. Not one of us is a single identity. Barack Obama was the first black president. He was also white. Not everyone who is gay or lesbian or trans or bi wants to be the poster child for someone else's LGBTQ justice work. There's more to them than that part of their identity. My heritage includes being Irish, but that doesn't mean I have some secret ancient in to the Celtic wisdom. I need to study it, honor it, be with it if I want to claim it as my own. The more we separate ourselves into these tiny little subsets of humanity based on identity, and then create this specialness from those identities, separate each other out, the more we will see the majority of other people outside our little tribes. Right now, each of you could have your own little subset tribe amongst yourselves from your identity. Create a circle around it, call it a nation state, create a flag, and you go. Let me know how that works out. Because we are a world that is interconnected, we're intermingled, and we are interdependent. Diversity is a wonderful thing and should be celebrated. One's personal identity can be celebrated as a part of who they are, but creating hierarchies based on identity mongering is not doing us any favors on the left or the right or the center. Many cultures and religions have taught that we are all connected. And I'm inspired when I see a dedication to kindness and connection even in the face of harm. I want to share a story with you where this really has touched me and continues to touch me in my life. It's a gift that I was given many years ago by the Chips family of the Pine Ridge Lakota, the Lakota tribe of people in South Dakota. Several of the elders from that community came to the community that I was in at the time to teach us their sweat lodge ritual. Now, while many aspects of the ritual were important, we were taught that the most important moment in the sweat lodge ritual is the moment when we enter the lodge, because that's the first time we say the phrase, "Matakwiyoasin." And these are Lakota words that mean all my relations, or we are all related. The phrase is repeated in the lodge after every prayer, after every song, after every moment of silence. And each time I sit in that lodge and I say these words, I'm overcome with humility, remembering who taught them to me. Here were these people whose ancestral homes were taken from them, whose people were massacred, whose traditions had been mocked and misappropriated in the media, and who to this very day struggle for recognition from a government who maintains practices that take away their children, pollute their water, and break the promises they made. And yet the Chips family came to teach this group of primarily white, American-born folk one of their most sacred rituals. They not only taught us the words Matakwiyoasin, I think they showed us the words with their actions. We are all related. We are all one family. It is the message of the Lakota, and I think it's the message at the heart of Unitarian Universalism that we cannot forget. Our Universalist ancestors of this faith proclaimed that no one is outside the great interconnectedness called love. If we are to dispel the illusion of nationalism, we must commit ourselves over and over to recognizing that great inherent love in each other and in each and every person, one at a time, not just by groups. And if that feels like too much of a stretch, then I'm going to say, let us just at least practice kindness and niceness to others. That we can do, and that I think we must do. And I know this probably isn't going to be a magic wand to end nationalism in this country, and I'm not trying to make it seem like it is a small thing. But I'm a small person, and I feel like I have to focus on what I can do. And I think what I can do and what each of us can do is this one-to-one kindness, this idea that we are complex beings, to stop putting ourselves in little subcategories, and please stop putting others in subcategories and identities as well. For I pledge allegiance to the values of love, kindness, and compassion, and for the promise which they create, one world, interconnected, with liberty and justice and peace for all. Perhaps that can be our new pledge each day of the year. Om Matakwe Oyasin. I invite you into a moment of reflection as we prepare to extinguish our chalice.
Thank you, Reverend Debbie.
You're welcome, John. Thank you. Thank you. Let us extinguish our... And then we get to sing Imagine. Yay. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit. Let's imagine a world where all are welcomed and loved. I think that is some of the most beautiful words ever written. I'm going to offer the closing, though, from Olympia Brown, who is one of the first fully ordained women into ministry in this country. She said, "We can never make the world safe by fighting. Every nation must learn that the people of all nations are children of God," I'll add children of love, "and must share the wealth of the world. You may say this is impractical, far away, can never be accomplished, but it is the work we are appointed to do. Sometime, somehow, somewhere, we must teach this great lesson. Yes. And that is why we are Unitarian Universalists. So please take the message, take the good word out with you wherever you go, and may peace go with you as well. Blessed be everybody.